Censorship. Are you concerned about it? Our community sure is. Recently, I started a topic of conversation in our support forum community for quantum healers called the continuing concern regarding censorship. In a few minutes, I'm going to be having a conversation with quantum healer Jennifer Wirtz about this, but I want to start by reading this post and give you a sense of the kinds of things we talk about in our support forum community. We don't only talk about sessions and how to assist clients. We talk about the larger issues that affect us all in society. And happily, it's a place where censorship is just not allowed to exist. So here's the post. I remember when I first heard Greg Prescott of N5D.com mention shadow banning. It was a long time ago, probably 2010 or so. My first reaction was confusion. It took some time for me to finally accept that throttling, shadow banning, censoring, and outright canceling of content creators was happening to so many. The day I personally found out about crisis actors, I remember crying in my truck because it rang true to me and it matched my experience. And I've really grown up since then. I still do my best to focus upon the positive, though, and I know love will win in the end, but when that end is, anyone's guess. Truth tellers have always had to be careful when the truth doesn't match the narrative of those in power. It has always been so. The internet used to be something like the wild, wild west, and so much more was discoverable and available. I know a lot of you out there don't even know that. But it's true. Much of that real estate has been captured or roped off or memory holed. YouTube is getting worse. If you're not aware of it already, the biggest example, as per recent terms and conditions, you are not allowed in any way to disagree with the World Health Organization. Their opinion is considered untouchable, and unquestionable truth, supreme truth. Our Quantum Healers channel has only ever had one video deleted by YouTube, and it was quite a while ago, even before the big C virus. It was a short video I made about self-healing, and we got a strike for violating a community standards. Yes, we did. So I got a taste of it a number of years ago. For that reason, you might want to come find us on Rumble. I don't even know if this video is going to end up being allowed to be put on YouTube. We'll see. I go through some recent examples, but let's see. And I talk about Rumble. And so then I actually asked our community how many of you know about Rumble or Odyssey, how many of you use those channels. Let's follow each other. And unless something huge changes, YouTube or Facebook really is not currently a place where healers can talk about self-healing or deeper spiritual truths. Neither is that Instagram place, by the way. But I asked the community what they thought about all of this in regards to censorship. The ensuing conversation was just amazing. And because of some things that Jen Wirtz said, I invited her to continue that conversation and record it and make a show. And that happens next. Hi, everyone. It's Candace Craw-Goldman from quantumhealers.com. And today I'm welcoming a colleague and fellow quantum healing practitioner today to talk about censorship and the different kinds of algorithms of reality out there. I've never talked to her before in person, well, live like this. I guess we're not in person, online, only kind of typing through our forums. Welcome, Jennifer Wirtz. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, I'm very, very excited to talk to you for a number of reasons. You know, you're fairly new in our community, and the first things you were ever posting, I'm like, there's something about that gal that I really connect with. I like your energy. I like your vibe. I like your style, but I don't know a whole lot about you. I know some tiny little fun tidbits, but why don't you introduce yourself to our audience? Who are you? How'd you get involved in this? And then we'll talk about our topic.
Okay. Well, like many quantum healers, the story isn't that short. So I'm going to kind of do the abridged version. I spent most of my adult life as a touring musician with a multi-platinum band. It was a tribal rock band out of this hometown that I'm at right now called Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And we toured all over the world. We played with the Grateful Dead. We played with the Allman Brothers.
Wow.
Carlos Santana. All kinds of people, if you could imagine, many tours. And I left the band twice and was in the band twice. So this is an interesting little part of it. In 95, I had a conflict with the lead singer, who is still my friend. And I left Rusted Root for 4.5 years. And at that time in 96, I went to Sedona on what I thought was going to be a retreat. Yay. I really wanted to get some connection. Now, I've been a light worker and a starseed from long before then. So I was aware of the shift, and I was aware of energy, and I'd gone to see many healers and psychics. I went to Sedona and I had a what they called energy work done. And on the table there, I had what we call a spontaneous Kundalini awakening. And I did not at that time know that that's what it was. Yeah. I had panic attacks for 2 years. I had electrical bolts going through my body. And eventually I started to receive some information from some higher beings. And they were giving me very basic information about the nature of personal reality, time, spectrums of experience from victim to perpetrator, oppressor, and victim, and how these work and how we sit on the spectrum at all times, that nobody is ever just one. And at the time, I was just like, whoa, come on. I just wanted to have a little Sedona vibes. And honestly, I had to seek assistance. And it took me about 3 years of learning how to pull my energy together, how to hold my energy. I learned how to build a shield and a field. I started writing down everything that this team, I called them my team, what they were telling me. And, I became a vegan, a raw vegan. It just went so far that I couldn't consume any media. I couldn't consume any social interactions. I became so sensitive. And it reached a point in 2000 where I said, I don't want this anymore. I can't do it. And I did what we call now, we being my team and I descended back into the density. At the time,
I get it. That's the playground. That's where stuff kind of happens, right?
At the time I thought, oh gosh, well, looking back, even I think like I disconnected. But in reality, it, as we start to see our lives in this holistic view, everything, and I mean everything, makes sense in the tapestry. So, and that's, has a little bit to do with those algorithms, but what happened was, I went back on a tour with the band, and I drank and I ate hamburgers and I, flirted with everybody and just did all that stuff. And I had a son and became a mom, but I also became super cynical about the shift. I became super cynical about energy work. I literally packed my crystals and my books into boxes and put them in the basement and said, oh, I don't get this. And the universe kept putting me in the position to be around it. People would come to me for advice. My best friend asked me to be the manager of her wellness center where they were doing energy work. So I was around it, but I had this sort of cynical energy around it until 2020. And then 2020 happened. Boom. Boom. I mean, boom. Because it all came back in a swoop, and the team, the messaging, and every single thing that I did in my entire life, but also up to and including that descent back into density, when I submerged back in and had a narcissistic relationship and some addiction issues to deal with, and all of it was a part of the tapestry that I needed to get to the point where they could come back and I wouldn't panic. And I actually knew exactly what was going on. And everybody else was like, oh no, the world's falling apart. And I was like, oh shoot, the world's falling together.
Can I ask you, were you in Pennsylvania in the Pittsburgh area while that was happening, or were you somewhere else?
I was in Pittsburgh, yes. And you know, everybody took it a different way, but it was a great, deep reconnection for me to my team. And so for the last 3.5 years, it's been what I used to call downloads. A lot of downloading. I'm actually starting to see they're actually uploads, activations from, it's like an iceberg that's already in there, that's coming up. And so I'm seeing more of it every day. And it's a fractal blooming, a fractal unboxing of information. You know, I mean, I'm not going to say it's not overwhelming, but I was led to quantum healing during this time. And my team actually kept telling me the phrase QHHT. I had no connection with Dolores's work. So finally I called somebody who had an advertisement. I just called her one night in 2020, late 2020. And I was telling her my experience and how I had been transmuting trauma for indigenous cultures and all kinds of things that I was experiencing. And I was on the ride. I couldn't get off. It was happening. It was my job. And they told me, this is your job. You're a specialist. You do certain things. So I finally called a QHHT person and I said, this is what's happening to me. What the heck do you do? And she explained a little of Dolores's work. And she said, you know, it sounds like you might be a power station. You should read the New Earth part of this 3 Waves book. So I got it and I read that part. And I've never read any other parts. I actually stopped there. And because it resonated so much that I realized everything that I learned in the 90s was still applicable. So that's the long story short. I now do shamanic soul retrieval here, quantum connect, BQH, and Reiki and sound alignments.
Perfect.
Yes.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit about Quantum Connect too, if you want to, because Quantum Connect is my new class offering. It's a new approach, but it's really not a new approach. Almost anything isn't always, new. It's a focus on something though that most quantum healers have done from the beginning, which is they've taken sort of this part where, well, let me show you kind of how this works. It's like this brief practice. It's a very open-eyed. You're not laying down. You're not closing your eyes. You're not trying to be in any sort of trance state. It's a give and take between client and practitioner. And what I found over, and it's been now more than 15 years, so many breakthroughs were being made right during that practice. This is how it works. I ask you questions, you say things with the first thing that comes into your mind, and it's just like this practice.
Yeah.
But and why did that happen that way? Because a lot of people were like, oh, I can just play here. This isn't the real session. I can just whatever. But that playful energy is so important, right? It was so important. And sometimes that carried through the rest of the session. Sometimes the session itself was just confirmation of this thing that we learned right away in this exchange. And so what I did was I took this kind of practicing of how it works, allowing your connection with your higher self to come through without editing. That's very important. And I turned it into an approach called Quantum Connect, which can be used as a tool or a standalone modality. And it's pretty new. You can find more information about it on our website at quantumhealers.com. But there are some people who have taken Quantum Connect and run with it. And you're one of them. And I have enjoyed hearing and reading so much about what you've done with it. I would love to hear your perspective your description of Quantum Connect and maybe some of the things that have happened with it. And then we'll get into the censorship part of our conversation.
Oh, I love that. Yes. You know what? I'm grateful to be here with you because I want to thank you for doing the Quantum Connect. I will say this in all honesty, whenever I did start getting connected into quantum healing, my team had made it clear to me that it was a stepping stone to other experiences and work. I didn't understand. I'm on the ride and I'm on the algorithm, the organic algorithm. We'll get into that later. But, I did train for BQH and I did a number of sessions with clients, and I had very good results with my clients, but my personal experience with it wasn't as joyful. When you came out with the Quantum Connect, it was more my my jam, so to speak, because I'm much more conversational and embodying this expanded state of consciousness.
Makes perfect sense. Perfect sense, because in some ways, Quantum Connect is it's celebrating that, because we're still in this place, meaning who's we? Well, those who are sort of understanding the value of consciousness exploration, but many of us are still kind of stuck in this idea. To do that, you have to be in this extremely deep trance and have this whole long process that takes this really long time. It's just not needed anymore. Yes, it can be helpful. Yes, it's interesting. Yes, it can be profound like that. It's just not the only way. And it's, there are other ways of doing that, and Quantum Connect can be that. Absolutely. And you've proven that.
Yes. It instantly was a bridge for me between the other work that I do in shamanic soul retrieval. And I don't know how deep you want to go, but one of the first things that my teams told me in 2020 was, eventually I'm going to have to go on a public forum. And interestingly, this is my first video about this kind of stuff. I'm coming out of the closet.
Yay! You know what? I actually have goosebumps. I love that so much. I knew that. I felt that from you from the beginning. I'm like, I felt your effervescence and your bubbling. And she's like, this one's ready to do the thing. And I'm happy to be a part of that.
Well, you are. That's the thing, is you are part of the tapestry. You were in my algorithm. And so when I started saying to my son, I need to learn how to do I'm going to have to confront this. I've been putting it off. And then you messaged me, and I thought that was fascinating, because whenever I have any encounter with you at all, I see the cardinals. I've messaged you about that before. I see cardinals. And so you're definitely in my sort of tapestry. But anyways, one of the first things that my team told me in 2020, in the second section of my awakening and connection, was that in order to show people or teach people, first they were going to teach me. They taught me how to ground, how to bring in my toric field, how to fill that up. At the time, just to give some reference, when I first started getting this information and they called it a Taurus, I got out of the session and was searching Taurus, the astrological sign, because that's how much I didn't know what they were talking about. I thought, this is a Taurus field. It has to do with, the bull. But no, it's a toric, it's a sacred geometry. It's a donut. And we are in the center of the donut, right? So they explained to me that you can teach young people, because my son was 15 at the time. He's 18 now. And I was thinking that in terms of this new wave, there's a new wave. They're just waking up. And they said, well, yeah. So they will understand all of this. And the first thing was, if this is a device, everything that we show you, your energy body is a device, just like this computer, an iPad, a phone, whatever. We're going to teach you how to ground and build your shield. For the first couple of weeks, you have to build it out every day. You have to go in and manually do it. After a while, you just click on the button and it's a system that has been built in. And whenever I started doing the soul retrieval work, which was kind of a spontaneous dimensional terrain recollection. They would show me the field as a device. It's a map. And then they say, we're going to reach out here into the cloud and pull this information onto the desktop, which is the heart, where you have your coherence. And then we open the folder, and then I view the lifetime. We're going to throw out what we don't want, that's jamming up your device, clearing off your hard drive, and putting back into the system what is going to help your device work best at most,
Clearing your cache, huh?
clearing your cache.
It's so amazing how much the internet and that it translates so well, which is why you're right. You can talk to young people about it this way when they're ready.
I mean, and they take it in and they really get it. It's crazy. So what I was working with the Quantum Connect, and I did a couple of test sessions with clients that I'd worked with before. Some of them didn't take to it as quickly, and some of them really were just like, oh, I like this. This is flowy. Okay. And I found that the longer that we spent trying to sort of, what I make people do in the session is to breathe in and engage their 4 elemental bodies. So they breathe outward and engage their field and engage their field. It's a form of heart coherence, but we get into sort of an expanded state. And I started doing that, and I didn't really realize that it was going to go into the similar territory as the soul retrieval, where we could bring certain other parts in and liberate them somehow, okay, in this place that we create, this garden. So, but when I first did my first one, that was the big shocker, because we went in, my flower was a fiber optic living consciousness of clovers. And it's the kind of clovers that are all over the United States, the little ones. I don't know what they're called, but they're kind of.
Can I interrupt by just to put it into context? So the Quantum Connect course provides exercises or games. Yes. And the very first one we play is one that has to do with a flower. And that's what Jennifer's talking about here.
Yes. So yeah, everybody's flower is different. Some people see the flower, and some of the elements about that I work with clients on in terms of their flower is, what planet are you from? Is it common? That's one of the main questions that you ask. How do you get the healing from it? What does it look like? People can breathe it. People can drink it. They make a tea. Some people go to it. Some people, they can pick it because it's everywhere. Mine were clovers, very common. And you just lay on a little patch of them, and they grew into my device, my energy body.
Yeah.
Like the movie Avatar, the living fiber optic plants. And they went in there and they moved into the different parts of the cloud, and they were changing things. And I was like, whoa, wow. It was a visceral experience for me. And then as we moved further into my my garden, on the left, there was sort of like a little town, with little houses in a row, as you would expect sort of a left brain to have where people live and work and do things. And then in the right side, so that's your left brain. And then your right brain is more this, I had prehistoric animals. I had a thick jungle, but it was scary. It was a little bit, bit. So when I went back to my water area, there was like, plenty of water, and this water woman came out, and she gave me some information, and then she was like, oh, by the way, you might want to go behind this wall where the water comes out. And that wasn't on the script. I said, oh, I went back there, and there was like a backyard, and it was a clearing. And when I work with clients now, I call that the backyard feature. It's a
Ah,
backyard. They can
interesting.
find there a playhouse, a tree house, a little teepee. People have found all kinds of things, but the idea is you're connecting somehow to a younger part. And I went back there, and there was a tree house, and I went up into the tree house, and there was I had a very difficult childhood, and there was a lot of dissociation. And by the time I was 16, I was a tough girl. So I was smoking the cigs and acting real tough. And I went in there and I found a little 5-year-old me, and she was just playing, and I started to talk to her, and I got interrupted by a different me in this treehouse. It was 16-year-old me who was the tough girl, and she essentially said, "Hold on. You don't get to talk to her unless you go through me." And I said, "Why?" And the team was like, "It's because she has the clairs." The 5-year-old has the clairs that are coming out. She's been kind of keeping them safe, but she has this guardian guard dog that was 16-year-old me. And I said, "Well, gosh, I don't know what to do." And my team said, "You can, first of all, tell them who you are now. You're essentially time traveling to them. You're going to tell them who you are now, because we're in a quantum space. Tell them what your life was like after you left the house, after 16. Tell them all the places you went. Tell them all the things you've learned, and ask them if they want to come with you." And inside of the work, I was like, I remember reading this, and it was like a John Bradshaw kind of thing from the 80s, where he was doing the inner child work, and he would go and visit his inner child at a younger time and invite them to come back with him. But what I did was I told them all about it. They got very excited, and I invited them back to the water where my guide was. And then they wanted to go into the water and be with this guide. And they were going to swim around in there and catch up to my current state of consciousness, because I took them out of this eddy. And it's so much like EMDR therapy, where you're liberating a trauma from an eddy, but you don't have to remember the actual trauma. You don't have to, because your mind doesn't actually work that way anyway.
Right.
And so I had started working with this. We have found with some clients, they found a playhouse, and in the attic there was an insect being. She was scared to death of it. We took him out with permission, and we took him back to her guide, and he put the giant insect to work in the garden. You're gonna take care of all the aphids and the invasive plants. That's your job. And he got smaller and smaller and smaller.
Interesting. Wow.
Okay.
Well, just amazing to hear some of this. Just the creativity and the connections that are made when there's a playful attitude, and the possibilities. And I just love the fact how multidimensional of an experience this is, kind of, a conscious exchange with other parts of you, and the kind of discoveries that you can make right there. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Oh yeah, thank you. I mean, it's been really positive for me personally in my personal healing.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. Oh, so wonderful. Well, we love having the kind of conversations that you bring to the table in our community. And so let's get to the one that got me to invite you to speak today. So I had already, at the top of the hour before we connected, read the post. I guess we now call it topic on our new site, I read the topic, introductory topic, and there was a lot of exchange, but I really liked what you said, because what you said really matched some of what my understanding of what's going on here. And you started talking about different realities and different algorithms. And I wondered if you could just present that whole concept to our audience right now, and kind of when you think maybe these came into play too. When exactly did they come online, do you think? I'd like to know.
Oh gosh. Oh,
just
God.
a guess.
It's a rabbit hole.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
The way that I have come to understand in 2020, as we've discussed, I was on Facebook prior to 2020. I was a pretty strong liberal progressive. I was vocal, and I've encountered quite a lot of identity shifting and disconnecting. This work will do that to you. This awakening will do that. It is called ego death. It's not fun, but it's very rewarding. Okay. What I experienced in 2020 was I was going online and seeing people. But one of the very first things the team brought into me was get into the middle. There's a wave of integration coming. And I said, get into the middle of what? They said, get into the middle of everything. Get into the middle of everything you think. Get into the middle of everything that you're observing, and watch it. And this was difficult because there was a lot going on. There was BLM, and there was the pandemic. Did you or didn't you take the procedure? Everybody was judging. Everybody was doing the things. And I had some opinions, and I was going online, and people were dogpiling people. People were dogpiling me. I thought, what is going on? What is happening that we're not allowed to question? And I started to ask questions about what I called the algorithm on Facebook, because there was a local newswoman who put her foot in her mouth, and she got canceled. And I said, y'all keep talking about what's her name. And if I post a lot about what's her name, I bet I'm going to get a lot more about what's her name. And I started doing like some experiments on the actual platform where I was typing in some outrage and then getting more outrage, more to be outraged about, because the only thing they want is my engagement, my actual conscious awareness on the device, and not on the world. So my world, you see, because there's 3 worlds that I've identified. And so, and I'm sure there are a million more, but it's just like the most simplest thing that I've been able to sort of whittle this down to. And it is that I went off of Facebook saying, I am going to explore an organic algorithm. I'm going to go out in the world. And this is the secret. This is creative visualization, all of it, the law of attraction. But there's something new. And it's a little bit more about this. If I engage with my joy and bring my conscious awareness to my joy, as much as I brought my conscious awareness into an outrage post about, somebody that rhymes with stump or whatever it was that people were doing, right?
Yep.
I was engaging with more joy, the more exponentially, it was coming into my experience, the more that I engaged with it in my conscious awareness. And this is the equivalent of pushing the like or share button. So I started to notice that, and I posted that. That was my last Facebook post before, like this year, when I posted a couple of events. I will not engage in any of the stuff. So as I started looking at the algorithms, my team started to engage me on that. And they said this conscious awareness is the main key, first of all. And there are autonomic systems. We have autonomic physical systems: breathing, heartbeat, digestion. And we can influence these autonomic systems by breath work, diet, exercise. And then we have autonomic energy systems. We have a toric field, we have gravity, electromagnetic field, and gravity. We have our energy, what we're transmitting, and what we're receiving are autonomic systems. They're always there. We're always grounded, but when you bring your conscious awareness to your grounding, it's like, wow, I am really grounded, and now I'm in an experience in my electromagnetic body. So the idea was that they were putting across to me was, if you engage with your transmission, the frequency you're putting out, okay, as if it's a radio dial. So the radio waves are all here. In this city of Pittsburgh, there are 200 radio stations that are transmitting music, talk, politics, sports into the air around me at all times. I only experience that if I actually have a receiver that I tune to the frequency that it's on. So we have autonomic systems that we come in with. And so I've been identifying what they are, and they source from our dimensional territory. So that's your, am I talking too much?
You are not. I'm enjoying the heck out of this. Really. No, it fits so much with my own internal thoughts. It's a lot of fun to listen. Please.
Okay. So I'll finish this thought and then let you have some time, but I apologize.
You're good.
So whenever we engage, we have different things that are default settings on our devices, and the default settings come out of our dimensional territory. So that's all of your lifetimes, all of your experiences going forward and backward in all time frames, dimensions, lifetimes, and locations, as well as your family of origin, what you came into, their tribal belief systems, religion, beliefs. All of these things are settings on your device you came in with. So that's why we clear the cache. That's why we clear the so, let's see, I wrote down some. Okay.
Well, while you're looking at that, let me mention, I don't know if you know a podcaster called Bridget Fedesi. She actually does an interview, a long form interview podcast called Factory Settings, which is absolutely fabulous. So she's from the entertainment world as well. And during a lot of this was like, ho, wait a second. So she's there. You guys have a lot in common. And she calls the factory settings sort of like how she was brought up to view certain things in culture and society, that people come with the factory settings. She's less about the metaphysical kind of a judgment or looking at it, but she talks a lot about culture and like what your family and what was around you, what you thought was normal and beautiful and correct and courageous and honest, and what those other people did.
Well,
anyway, she calls that factory settings. I love the way you call that.
They're default on your device. And so we come in with that. So there's the dimensional territory. So if I was a witch in the 1500s, I likely, there's a good chance that I got my throat torn out and I was burned. Sorry for trigger warning, but so many of us have experienced the persecution wound. I am actually healing it right now on this conversation with you as it's going to be put out for people to hear, because I have that and I came in with that. That's one of my default settings. And
Goosebumps, which tells me huge truth you just spoke right there
yes,
for not
and
just yourself, for
no,
many people who are listening to this.
it's okay. I'm here to tell everybody it's okay for us to do this now. That this is going to flip whether we want it to or not, or whether we take part or not. But our conscious awareness is outrageously powerful at this moment, right now. So just, speaking it's a big one for all of us, I think. And so after your dimensional terrain, you have your family of origin, okay? And then you have your family of choice. So once you go out into the world, we usually recreate our family of origin. Let's say, just for example, I was the youngest of 6 kids. I was the scapegoat because I was the truth teller in my family, and then I became the black sheep. Everybody has a role. There's the caregiver, there's the people pleaser, there's the second mom, the golden child. You
The
go
negotiator. I was the negotiator.
Oh, were you the
And then
negotiator?
the rebel. Yeah, I have
Are
mine.
you
Yeah, we all have it.
Are you a middle child?
I'm the only child now, but I was the oldest. But I stepped in the middle between my parents because I was like, what's going on with you people? You're not hearing what the other one is saying. And I would just I'd get in the middle and I'd say, I tried, to bring detente to my parents all the time. And even as a tiny child, I'm 5 or 6, even as a tiny child, I'm like, this is nuts. I shouldn't be doing this. I'm just the kid here.
Yes. And you had that awareness. You were probably the more consciously developed person there, sadly. No offense.
Possibly.
But
possibly.
I think that some people would call that role the peacemaker. But what we do is we go out into the world. In my experience, I went out into the world and I attracted the same dynamic where I could play the same role. Yay.
Sure. Very common.
Our lives are trying to teach us what the roles are. Our lives are trying to say, hey, you've got a setting. And what I'm learning about what you said is what's different now, or when did these algorithms start? I mean, I don't know when they started, but I do know that right now it's a lot easier to shed our settings. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. For a long time, especially getting into doing this work with Dolores, in some, I want to say elementary ways, but that sort of suggests that we didn't know much. It wasn't that at all. It was sort of simplified in sort of some foundational ways. I realized very early on that there was a kind of reality where everyone was in, and then there was this, it's kind of like a Venn diagram. My personal reality intersected with the big reality, and there were a whole lot of people, even people doing this work, who their intersection with all of reality and their Venn diagram was way over there, and not intersecting with mine. And what I found, it took me a long time to even come up with language about this, which was, and this is so much, I just want, people out there who are listening to this, who might be healers, why I'm really speaking to you and inviting you to engage with us over in our community, is because this team thing, these people were like, you have to be on this team or you have to be on that team, and you have to choose a team, and you can't not be on a team. And I couldn't understand why you had to try to force yourself into these certain pre-programmed Venn diagrams, where I know the consensus or the shared reality was one thing, and we all had our own, things we bring, which just is different language than from what you just said, right?
Yes. As a matter of fact, that's one of the ones that they told me was the consensus reality.
Yeah. And so, there's consensus reality, but then there's the overarching, let's call it real reality, or everything reality. There's a lot of different diagrams here. But the thing that you said that really caught my attention in our conversation on our forums was the digital algorithm, because, the digital algorithm didn't really exist in the 80s, or if it did, it was very small and it wasn't engaged with most people. And then, in the latter part of the 90s, and the day my husband brought a laptop home and was showing it to me. And I have to share this tiny thing though, because this is just crazy, because it's so pivotal to me. It's so pivotal. And I think about this moment so much, and I'm wondering too if this moment is even this very basic, visceral understanding of what reality I was getting ready to step into when I opened up this laptop. I was a young mother. We lived in Baldwinsville, New York, which is just north of Syracuse. We were there not very long, about 18 months, but it was winter. The snow was coming down like crazy. It was dark. Kids were in bed, and we were looking at this laptop, and he was showing me how you could go to different places, and we had a desktop, but it was the first time really the internet was something that I could really look at. And I went to and I realized I could go to the Library of Congress, sitting under my comforter in a bedroom in the middle of winter at night. I could look up something. What would I look up? And I looked up, and this is just defines me almost. I looked up the Dead Sea Scrolls. Well, I mean, I could have looked up a Hollywood person or a story about this or whatever, and I just went straight to that stuff, right? The Dead Sea Scrolls, and some of the translations of it. And I was absolutely floored at the possibility of being in my physical place where I was with my husband, just right over here, looking at this bit of history, using this interface, and absolutely understanding what I was doing was going to change the world. I still, at the time, I had friends, my best friend forever, her name's Linda right now. And she even was arguing with me at the time. I'm like, email is going to it's going to make letters absolutely, outdated. You're not going to write business letters anymore. And she's like, I can't do email. I think it's just a fad. And I'm like, mm-mm. I mean, I saw it all coming, right? And so, but I've really never heard anyone label it like that. Yes, we talk about the technology age, but you're kind of pegging about it being an algorithm, not imposed by a techno whatever, but a thing into itself, right? That's the interesting thing.
So we have the three separate algorithms that we have our settings on. First one is the microcosm of the whole thing, which is your devices, your literal devices, your phone, your computer. These are mimicking the greater algorithm, the organic algorithm. This is how I see it. Okay. And this is how it's been shown to me. I have a very visual download type of nature. Like I said, it's more of an it feels more like uploads these days, because they're coming from what's already in there. It's being uncovered inside of us rather than coming in from an outside source. It's actually information that's there. So the organic algorithm is the tapestry of light and synchronicity. It's the divine tapestry. So when we align with that, we know it. We see repeating numbers, animals, symbols. This is why quantum healing is so excellent, but especially Quantum Connect, in that conscious conversation, to bring people into alignment with their language in this tapestry. So that algorithm is flowing. And we know when we get into it, because our state of consciousness actually expands, and it feels flowing almost slightly like you drank some mushroom tea. You feel just slightly untethered, but if you can get grounded.
I'm glad to know that, because I've been afraid to try any mushroom tea. So actually, you saying that right now lets me know what that's like without me having to do that.
That's right. It's a very similar feeling to me whenever I get into that expanded state of consciousness. It's almost like, ooh, how big can this get? Like this is going to just keep being in a flow. And furthermore, to your earlier comment, there's also sort of laws there that defy everything that we know in the consensus reality. So the laws there, one of the main one is, they said, I said, try to show it to me, try to help me understand. They said, what if we told you you can't lose? And I said, well, thank you very much. You know what? They said, no, really. About this new reality. What if we, I don't know about your team, but my team's hilarious.
Oh, absolutely. Humor is how I recognize them. If
Yeah.
there's no humor, something's not correct.
Light sarcasm, a little bit of burn here and there. They'll throw me a little burn.
That's why Dolores was so fabulous. She was able to bring some of that into who she was. And that's how I recognize her energy too. It's that it kind of like distilled.
Yeah. So anyway, they said, no, like, really, what if you couldn't lose? Imagine a reality where everything was win-win, so that every choice that you make and you are then elevated, because I'm in service. In my service, I'm elevated and supported. What they're saying is that is never going to be at the expense of somebody else. It will always be that your elevation and support elevates and supports everyone you come into contact with.
Yep.
And that's really the only way that it does work, because it is a fractal evolutionary blooming. It can't stay still, which then they showed me that is the consensus algorithm. Consensus algorithm, it is a wide spectrum. So we have the organic algorithm that is our divine birthright. We're connected to the divine tapestry and the divine timing, the light and synchronicity. And then the consensus reality. It's what we all agree to, what is real. It's the consensus. We agree to this. Matter is this thick. I'm going to get old. I'm 54. My eyes should start doing this. You have to do certain things to get the money, to do the thing, to get to the place. All of these things are the rules. And I mean, like, from as simple as you got to put gas in your car to get from A to B. Now, those basics of physics are really hard to wrap your head around. That things could change like that. Physically, things could change like that. I haven't totally got there. I don't have that yet. But the rest of it, it gets into where gosh, this is more complicated than I thought it would be. But okay, so the consensus reality is in a container. It is tapered. It's been tapered. We're inside of it. I don't like to use the word the matrix, but it's a little similar to me and less mathematical, but it's definitely it is mimicking the organic algorithm, only it's tapered. And so it becomes a feedback chamber. And there's nowhere for the energy to go. So people can only evolve a certain height inside of the consensus reality. And then they have to have a breakthrough awakening, which for me manifested as a spontaneous Kundalini awakening that shattered my reality and made me feel crazy for 2 years. And we don't have to do that anymore because that veil is
right.
thin.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. I think there's so many things we don't have to do anymore.
Yes.
But we're still used to thinking that we do. I mean, one of the clearest examples of that are the Tibetan monks, to achieve some of what, physiologically would be the gamma brainwave state, where they were able to experience these miraculous things. They had to put in years of ritual and repetitive and protection of their field and hours of praying and hours of meditating and silence and food and being away from all that stuff to create all of the things to be able to get to the gamma brainwave state, which is all very beautiful. But that's not the only way one needs to do that now. And one doesn't have to put in that kind of effort and work. I've managed now to, and somehow I've been gifted with a couple, 2 or 3 times in my life during sessions, during tandem, actually, BQH sessions where I've participated in a, we'll call it a trance state with somebody else. And even the people in the room have described this as it's less of a deep theta, I'm almost into delta asleep, slow, kind of really heavy state. It's more of this very high, very, very high, very organized, very coherent state. That's this effervescent sort of thing that's going on, that the same kind of stuff can happen. And that is where some of that reality, physical reality stuff, it's absolutely possible and manifests itself and changes things that doesn't quite fit in that consensus reality container. And then we have to sort of explain it, or people call it, this is where people call things anomalies or unexplainable, or, you're flat out misinformed, or that can't possibly be true. So you must be crazy, or, or a conspiracy, or all of those things, or, here's one that's actually used though in the medical community with they call it spontaneous healing, like spontaneous remission too. All these spontaneous things that they absolutely can't talk about, and it happens immediately. And you try to talk to a medical professional about any of this, and they're just like, can't talk about that. You can't talk about that, but they give it that label. I believe that often happens in that gamma brainwave state, or during other very profound states like near-death experiences, etc.
Yes. But I think that we are having, with the veil, it feels so much thinner now that these states are easier to get to. There's, it's like we're being granted day passes. For me, it's light workers, and certain individuals are. I'm a specialist.
I love that so much. I love that so much. I want my day pass.
Yeah. So you go in and what they ask me to do is, and this is one of the specialties that I came in for. I can't say that I understand all of it, but I know that I have the job, and I know when I'm doing it. I know for sure. And one of those is to learn about this consensus reality box, the matrix, and that we now have the opportunity to kind of catch the organic algorithmic flow. It's like a wave that we can get on it. Once you get in it, they're asking us to breathe into that space and expand it, energize it, and ground there. Because that's what they all mean. All of these influencers, all of these people going online saying, you are the awakening, you are the doorway, you are the one who's going to do that. We have to actually physically take our conscious awareness out of this and into that. And so the digital reality is a mimicry of, it makes me think of porn versus actual heart-based sexual connection. It's the most base, and here we are engaging certain things. And what it's brought me to is the quandary of, and it's an arm of the consensus reality, just like the news, just like, the news. Wow. I can't watch the television. But we're being asked to disengage while observing. We can't not be human. So we disengage from it and step into these other algorithms. And so one thing that they did do is give me an example, because I said, this was a year ago, I said, how does that look? How does that look? Because the answers that I kept getting was, you know, you can manifest your reality, but you can't be the boss of it the whole time. You have to let it go, right? And we know that the law of attraction, they say, don't hold on. But to really get that, they said, we want you to feel the feeling of that expansion. What does it feel like when you are really embodying authenticity of your signature frequency from your divine creator, and you're being that? For me, that's making art here in my space. I make art, people come, I heal, do the healing work. I make music, I am a singer and a songwriter. Sometimes I do that. And I talk to people about this. I do a class and we talk about energy. And I feel like I'm doing it. And they say, so keep expanding on just that feeling. And I said, but so how does this work? Because I wrote a book. I wrote a book about my whole experience. It's been written for 10 years, 12 years now. And I finally got around to getting it underway. And they said, so I don't know how all the steps. And they said, you don't need to know all the steps. We'll show you. Just think of one thing. And what I thought was, and I asked my son if I could use this as an example, because he's a musician. He's quite talented. He is in an age frame, in a time in history when kids don't know like what really good songwriting is. Some of them, they don't know. They have very few examples of it. The popular music is not entirely excellent. Okay. I'm trying to be polite. It's not the greatest. I mean, we had like all kinds of people. We had Cat Stevens and Neil Young and Carole King, and we had all of them, you know. Anyway, he's a great songwriter and producer, and he'd been playing and doing all kinds of stuff, and nobody was really noticing. And they said, how about let's imagine that you can create a circumstance where he is able to get some recognition, some acknowledgement. And I was like, okay. I said, so I'm setting forth that I would like to see my son get some recognition and acknowledgement. So I left. We went to this little day concert thing he was playing. None of his friends came. Nobody was paying attention. It's disheartening to a musician. And there was this guy who was supposed to be doing sound, and he kept leaving and making some food at a food truck. I was enraged. And my son's dad said, I'll handle this. He went over, made good friends with the guy. Just glad handing, being real friendly. And can we get some help with the sound? They made friends. My son performs his set. And I thought, he gets off stage. He's like, again, nobody came. Nobody cares about what I'm doing. I mean, I feel like I'm shouting into the abyss, And I thought, well, thanks a lot, team. That was a great example. But a week later, my son was at his dad's and he called me and said, what should we do? We don't have anything to do. And I said, I heard there's some musicians playing down the street. You guys could go ride your bikes down there and look at this other festival. And the next thing I know, I get a phone call. Oh, this famous musician was there playing. And a bunch of people were there, all mid-30s, big music fans. And my son's dad and my son showed up, and the sound man said, oh, hey, it's great to see you. I met you last week. And he says, by the way, where is your son? He was great. And he said, he's right here. And he said, would he be willing to jump up and play for 30 minutes? These people are all here. And he got introduced by the kind of famous guy. These people listened, and it was, but what they said to me was, you couldn't have planned that.
Right.
I couldn't have imagined that the food truck guy that I was going to be a bitch to, I was going to go over and bitch at him about the sound and be, but the way it worked out, he is one of the parts of the tapestry. I can't make it up.
Yeah.
We can't make it up. It's perfect. So there's that surrender that we have to, and then breathing into that space and allowing, you know. But about the digital algorithm.
Just a beautiful story. So many beautiful things. Is that one of your paintings behind you?
This is actually a collage that I did. It's quite large. It's 8 by 10 feet.
I love it. I love it that you do big work, because I do that too. We have quite a bit in common, at least as that goes. I don't know about the music part, but the quantum healing and the artwork, we got it going there, sister. It's so many more things I think we could talk about, and I would love to continue conversations like this in the future. But we have been at it for a while. So after everything that we've talked about today, if you were to just sort of tell a listener right now your idea of and your understanding of these algorithms and living within them to the best of your ability, and give them a piece of advice, what small sort of attainable bit of advice could you give somebody about understanding your discoveries and helping their own lives be a little brighter?
The single most powerful thing, and it's more powerful than we think, is simply bringing your conscious awareness to your default systems. If you just start to be aware of them, and the most powerful way to do that is through a mindfulness practice. I'm not talking sit a perfect way, breathe the perfect rhythm. I'm talking 20 minutes, just clear your mind and go inward from the outer arena. First of all, turn the TV off. I'm sorry, but turn the dang TV off. I mean, all the way off. Everything. And if you're going to do the social media, curate it. Try to be very mindful of what you're taking in, and use your discernment. Of course, that we're all sort of on that level, I think, with the social media. But in terms of these default systems, when we talk about mindfulness, we're getting into that central spot where we're not only observing the outside world and how we interact with it and react to it, we're also observing our inner thoughts, our mental body, emotional body, and our dimensional terrain. Just watch what you're saying to yourself, what you're saying about other people in your mind. I feel envious of that person. Why don't I feel happy for her? That's so weird. Okay, then sit. Just start watching yourself, observing everything from that witness. And this is conscious awareness. This is bringing, instead of running on a default, we start to just become consciously aware. We start to drive the vehicle. That's my main advice.
That's really wonderful advice. Yeah. Instead of react, we're sometimes many of us, and most of humanity's first inclination is a react, and that reaction gets informed by these default settings. And so to sort of step back from that, I think, is valuable advice for everybody. Jen, this has been great. I've had a wonderful time talking with you. I really am looking forward to chatting with you again, and I'm really pleased that you joined our community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Candace. I would love to talk to you about your art sometime too. And for anyone watching, I apologize if we were kind of all over the place, but that was
that's me
to cover.
Every one of these shows are like that. We go where we want, and I love the fact that we can do that, because I don't follow prescribed paths very well. So
good.
You get what you get.
this is our art algorithm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, again, it's been very enjoyable. I hope to do it again. Everyone can find Jen Wertz on our quantumhealers.com directory, but do you have a personal website?
I do. You can go to jenwertz.com, JENN Wertz, WERTZ.com. That has all of my stuff, my art, my quantum healing, my space here that I work out of, that is a bohemian cool space. And you can also find me on Instagram at Quantum Healing Pittsburgh. So,
Perfect.
yeah,
All right. Well, until next time, thanks again.
thank you.
And those of you out there who do this kind of work, helping others, if you're service to others, if you're a quantum healer, a healer of any kind, you're welcome to join us, quantumhealers.com. Until next time, bye, everybody. Thanks, Jen.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.